A pregnant canine German shepherd was taken to be put down. Then tears started falling from her eyes. In a cold, sterile shelter room, a pregnant canine German shepherd stood trembling, her fate seemingly sealed. Her once proud, loyal eyes now reflected nothing but sorrow and resignation. As the door creaked open and her time drew near, something heartbreaking happened. Tears began streaming down her face. But what unfolded next will leave you speechless. Stay with us for a story that will forever change the way you see loyalty, hope, and the silent cries of those who have no voice. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more life-changing stories like this to you. The shelter walls echoed with the distant sounds of barking. But in one isolated corner, silence hung heavy. Bella, a once proud Kanoi German shepherd, trained for search and rescue, now stood alone in a cold metal enclosure. Her thick coat, dulled by weeks of neglect, barely concealed her swollen belly. She was pregnant, close to giving birth, but none of that mattered to people who had brought her here. In their eyes, she was no longer useful, retired, discarded, and now scheduled for euthanasia. She pressed her head against the cool steel bars, her deep brown eyes vacant, lost in memories of better days. She remembered the mission she had bravely undertaken, pulling survivors from collapsed buildings, leading lost children out of the woods. Her handler always by her side, praising her courage. But that world felt like a distant dream now. Her handler had moved away after being injured, and no one else had stepped forward to claim her. As the minutes ticked by, the door to the back room opened, and two shelter workers appeared. Bella sensed what this meant. Her body tensed, and for the first time in her strong, disciplined life, she felt fear. Her heart raced. She stepped back, her paws slipping slightly on the cold, damp floor. And then something unthinkable happened. A single tear slid down her face, and then another, silent, uncontrollable, as if all the strength she had mustered over the years had finally given way to the crushing weight of abandonment. The workers paused, stunned. They had seen fear, aggression, and even resignation in the animals brought through those doors. But never this. Never a dog crying as if she fully understood her fate. Just then, a voice echoed through the hallway. "Wait! Stop!" It was low and urgent, and it belonged to a man who had just entered the shelter. Dressed in worn jeans and a faded jacket, his boots still muddy from the road. The man's eyes locked onto Bella's enclosure. His name was Travis Cole, a retired firefighter who had worked side by side with K-9 units during countless rescues. He had come to the shelter that day looking for a companion. But he wasn't prepared for this. He wasn't prepared to meet her. As he approached, Bella took a cautious step forward. Her instincts told her to trust him, despite the pain and betrayal she had experienced. Travis crouched down, his rough hands gripping the cold bars gently as he spoke in a soft, trembling voice. "Hey there, girl. It's okay now. I've got you." The shelter workers exchanged uncertain glances. One of them shook his head. "She's scheduled for today," he muttered. Too late to change the paperwork. But Travis Studlexer, his jaw clenched. "Then change it. I'm taking her home." In that moment, something shifted in the air. Bella's tail moved ever so slightly, a hesitant wag that seemed to carry the fragile thread of hope. Travis reached into his pocket and pulled out an old faded badge, a token from his firefighting days. "I've seen this kind of loyalty before," he told the workers, his voice steady. "And I'm not letting her story end here." It took hours of negotiations, signatures, and promises. But as the sun began to set that evening, Travis walked out of the shelter with Bella by his side. For the first time in weeks, she stepped onto grass, felt the wind on her face, and lifted her head high. And as they walked toward his battered pickup truck, Bella paused, turned back to look at the shelter one last time, and then climbed into the passenger seat. What neither of them knew was that their journey was only beginning, and the challenges ahead would test both of their spirits in ways they could never imagine. The ride back to Travis's modest farmhouse was quiet, but the tension in the air was thick. Bella sat beside him on the worn passenger seat. Her large body curled as much as her rounded belly would allow. Every bump in the road made her flinch, and her eyes darted nervously toward the window, as if afraid she might wake up and find herself back in that cold, unforgiving shelter. Travis glanced at her from time to time, his calloused hands gripping the wheel. He couldn't shake the image of her tears, real human-like tears streaming down her muzzle. He had worked alongside kinds long enough to know their emotional capacity. But seeing it firsthand like that had stirred something deep in his heart. "You've been through hell, haven't you, girl?" he murmured, his voice soft, but breaking slightly with emotion. Bella shifted at the sound of his voice, her eyes meeting his for a fleeting second before she turned her head away again, as if she couldn't quite believe she was safe yet. By the time they pulled into the long dirt driveway leading to his farmhouse, night had fallen. The headlights illuminated the small, cozy home tucked under the sprawling branches of an old oak tree. The air smelled of fresh earth and early spring blossoms, a sharp contrast to the sterile scent of the shelter. Travis opened the passenger door, stepping out first and reaching back to help Bella down. She hesitated for a moment before placing one heavy paw on the ground, then the next. Her body moved stiffly, exhaustion and the weight of her pregnancy, making each step difficult. "Easy now," Travis whispered, walking slowly beside her as they approached the house. Inside, the farmhouse was simple but warm. A wood-burning stove crackled softly in the corner of the living room, and thick quilts were draped over the old couch. Travis led Bella to a makeshift bed he'd quickly arranged with blankets near the warmth of the fire. She sniffed the area cautiously before circling and settling down with a long, tired sigh. Travis crouched beside her, his rough fingers brushing gently through her matted fur. "You're safe now," he promised. "You and those little ones. I'm going to take care of you." For the first time that day, Bella's body seemed to relax. Her eyes drifted closed, and though she didn't fall fully asleep, the tension in her muscles eased. Travis sat nearby, watching her carefully. He had no idea how far along she was, or if she was even healthy enough to deliver safely. The hours dragged into the early morning, and just as the first light of dawn broke through the thin curtains, Bella let out a low, distressed whimper. Her body trembled, and she shifted uncomfortably on the blankets. Travis's heart sank. He wasn't a veterinarian. Far from it. But he'd seen enough births on the farm to know what was happening. Panic mixed with determination as he grabbed a clean towel and his old medical kit from the closet. "It's okay, girl. I'm right here," he whispered, kneeling beside her. Bella's breathing grew heavy, and her eyes locked onto his, filled with trust and pain. And then it began. The first puppy arrived, tiny and fragile, its fur slick and eyes tightly shut. Travis worked quickly, clearing its airways and wrapping it gently in a towel. Moments later, a small, weak cry filled the room. One by one, the puppies came. Each new life felt like a miracle, a silent triumph over the darkness that had nearly claimed their mother's life. But as the fifth puppy arrived, something was wrong. Bella's breathing grew shallow, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Come on, girl. Stay with me," Travis pleaded, his hand shaking as he stroked her head. He felt utterly helpless. He had saved her from the shelter. But was he about to lose her now? Bella lay on the blankets, her body trembling and soaked with exhaustion. Travis pressed a damp cloth to her head, his rough fingers moving gently, his heart pounding against his chest like a war drum. Around them, 5 tiny puppies squirmed weakly, their fragile cries blended with the crackle of a nearby fire. "Stay with me, girl. Don't you dare give up now," Travis whispered, his voice breaking under the weight of helplessness. He had never felt this kind of fear before. Not during his years running into burning buildings. Not during moments when his own life had been at risk. This was different. This was a life he had promised to protect. And right now, he felt that promise slipping through his fingers. Bella's breathing grew shallower, and a cold sweat broke across her nose. Her half-closed eyes lifted toward Travis, as if to say she was sorry. Sorry she couldn't fight anymore. "No, you're not done," Travis said firmly, leaning closer. His mind raced through everything he'd learned about working dogs. They were fighters, survivors, and Bella was no exception. With trembling hands, he reached for his phone and called a local vet, Dr. Emily Hargrove, a woman known for never turning away a desperate case. "Emily, it's Travis. Bella is fading. She's just given birth to 5 pups, but she's not doing well. I don't know what else to do." Emily's voice came through calm, and steady despite the early hour. Stay with her. Keep her warm. Gently massage her sides. Sometimes it helps stimulate circulation after delivery. I'm on my way. Time became a blur. Travis did exactly as instructed, his large, callous hands carefully massaging Bella's sides, whispering to her over and over again, "You're not alone. You're safe now. Just hold on. Please hold on." He could feel the faint rise and fall of her chest under his palms. Each breath shallow and labored. The fire crackled on, casting a soft orange glow across the room, as if the very walls of the farmhouse were holding their breath too. The sound of a car engine roared in the distance, headlights cutting through the morning fog as Dr. Harrow pulled into the driveway. Moments later, she rushed through the door, her medical bag in hand. Travis stepped back, his eyes never leaving Bella. As Emily went to work, she checked vitals, administered fluids, and injected something that Travis didn't even bother asking about. He just watched, silently, praying. After what felt like a lifetime, Bella's breathing finally deepened. Her trembling slowed, and her eyes fluttered open more fully. She turned her head toward Travis, and for the first time since that harrowing night at the shelter, gave his aunt the faintest lick. "She's going to make it," Dr. Hargrove said softly, offering him a tired but reassuring smile. "She's a fighter, that one." Travis exhaled a breath he hadn't even realized he was holding. His shoulders sagged with relief as he knelt beside Bella again, his hand resting gently on her head. "You hear that, girl? You're going to be just fine. And those little ones." He turned his eyes toward the puppies, now nursing quietly, their tiny bodies pressed against their mother's side. They're going to have their mom. For the next few hours, the farmhouse remained wrapped in peaceful silence. The puppies slept soundly, their small bodies rising and falling in rhythm with Bella's now steadier breathing. As dawn turned to day, Travis stood and poured himself a cup of coffee, his thoughts racing. He couldn't help but think about everything Bella had endured, discarded, forgotten, and left to deed just because she was no longer deemed useful. But here she was, alive, strong, and surrounded by new life. And as he stood there watching the tiny family, Travis made a silent vow. Bella would never again know what it felt like to be abandoned. These puppies would never face the cold metal bars of a shelter. They would grow up knowing safety, love, and the freedom their mother had nearly lost. What he didn't know was that fate still had one more test in store for them, a challenge that would push Bella's courage and his own to the limit. Days passed, and the farmhouse slowly transformed into a sanctuary of new beginnings. Travis, who had lived alone for years, found himself waking to the soft whimpers of hungry puppies and the gentle sighs of Bella as she cared for them. Each morning, sunlight poured through the windows, bathing the small living room in a warm, golden glow. Life felt different now, full of purpose. Bella grew stronger with each passing day. Her fur regained its luster. Her eyes sparkled with a light Travis hadn't seen before. And despite her exhaustion, she cared for her pups with unwavering devotion. Travis admired her resilience. She had come back from the brink, survived a trauma that would have broken even the strongest souls. And here she was, nurturing life. But peace was fleeting. One stormy evening, as thunder rumbled low across the horizon and the first drops of rain began to patter against the farmhouse windows, a dark pickup truck rolled down the driveway. Its headlights cut through the thickening fog. Travis stepped onto the porch, his brows furrowed. He wasn't expecting visitors. The truck door opened and a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out, his expression cold and unreadable. Travis immediately recognized the uniform under the man's coat. Animal control. "Mr. Cole?" The man asked, his voice flat. Travis nodded cautiously. "That's me. What's this about?" The man pulled a folded document from his coat pocket. "I'm here about the German shepherd you took from the county shelter. There's been a complaint." Travis's heart clenched. "Complaint about what?" The man's gaze shifted toward the house. The shelter director filed, "A report claims the dog is government property, part of an unfinished K-9 program. Legally, she should have been returned to them after her service, not adopted out." Travis felt the blood drain from his face. He looked back through the open door, where Bella lay with her puppies, completely unaware of the threat at their doorstep. You can't be serious, Travis said, his voice low but firm. She was about to be euthanized. She was thrown away like garbage, and now they want her back. The officer sighed. Look, I don't like this either, but the paperwork is official. You got 48 hours to comply. Travis shook his head, his fists clenching at his sides. I'm not handing her over to the people who left her to be. She's finally safe. And those puppies, they deserve better. The officer tucked the paper back into his coat. I'm just doing my job, sir. Think about it. You've got until Friday. As the truck disappeared down the road, the storm broke loose. Rain pounding against the farmhouse roof, like a cruel reminder of the battle ahead. Inside, Bella had sensed something was wrong. She stood protectively over her puppies, her eyes locked on Travis as he entered. He knelt down beside her, his throat tight with emotion. I promise you, girl, he whispered. No one's taking you away from me. Not now. Not ever. The next morning, Travis made some calls. If the shelter was serious about reclaiming Bella and her litter, he wasn't going to make it easy. He contacted an old friend, Melanie Dawson, an attorney known for fighting against unjust animal control policies. By afternoon, she was sitting at his kitchen table, reviewing the paperwork. This is a mess, she admitted, flipping through the documents. But there's a loophole. They classified Bella as unfit for duty before scheduling her euthanasia. That technically ends her government designation. She was released for adoption, and you legally took her in before the procedure. A flicker of hope ignited in Travis's chest. So what does that mean? Melanie smiled faintly. It means we're going to fight this, Travis. And I'm not letting them take her back without a legal battle. Outside, the storm clouds slowly began to part, sunlight breaking through in thin golden beams. Bella approached Travis and pressed her head gently against his leg. Her eyes, once filled with sorrow, now held something stronger. Trust. We're going to win this girl, Travis whispered, his fingers brushing through her soft fur. I don't care what it takes. You're home now, and that's never going to change. The following days passed in a blur of tension and uncertainty. Travis worked tirelessly alongside Melanie, gathering every piece of evidence to fight the claim. The farmhouse, once a place of peace, felt more like the front line of an emotional battlefield. Bella sensed the unrest. She stayed close to Travis, her eyes constantly tracking his movements, her ears twitching at every unfamiliar sound. Despite the looming threat, life carried on inside those four walls. The puppies grew stronger, their tiny legs wobbling. They attempted their first clumsy steps. Their eyes had just begun to open, revealing curious little gazes that melted Travis's heart. Bella cared for them with tireless devotion, but even as she nursed her litter, her eyes often turned to the door as if fearing someone might take them away. Then on a rainy Thursday afternoon, one day before the deadline, an unexpected knock came at the door. Travis opened it to find a man standing on the porch, his clothes soaked from the storm. He was older, probably in his late 50s, with sharp features and a rigid military posture. His coat bore the emblem of the Department of Defense. Mr. Cole, the man asked, his voice calm but authoritative. That's me, Travis replied cautiously. The man extended his hand. I'm Colonel Dean Matthews. I believe we have something important to discuss about Bella. Travis's chest tightened. I'm not giving her up, he said immediately, his protective instincts kicking in. The colonel held up his hands. I'm not here to take her, but I think there's something you need to know. May I come in? Reluctantly, Travis stepped aside. Inside, Bella immediately stood and positioned herself between her puppies and the stranger, her body tense but silent. Matthews removed his cap and looked directly at her. Réunir à nouveau. His face softened, and for a moment he seemed overwhelmed by emotion. Bella wasn't just any K-9. He began quietly. She was part of a classified military program. Her mission history is sealed, but I can tell you this. She served overseas, saved countless lives, and he swallowed hard, his eyes misting. She was my partner's dog, Captain Eric Dawson. Travis's eyes band. Dawson as in yes. Matthews confirmed. Melanie's brother. He was killed in action last year. Bella was there when it happened. She refused to leave his side for 2 days until she was rescued. After that, she was brought back, but she wasn't the same. They deemed her unfit for further service. She was supposed to be retired with honors, but somehow she got lost in the system. Travis felt the weight of the revelation crash over him like a tidal wave. Bella's sorrow, her tears the day he found her, all made sense now. She hadn't just lost a handler. She'd lost the person she loved most in the world. She's not just a dog, Matthews continued, his voice tight with emotion. She's a hero, and she deserves better than what she's been given. Travis crouched beside Bella, running his hand along her back as she pressed closer to him. "So, why are you here?" he asked quietly. "I came to make this right," Matthews said. "I've already contacted the shelter director. I pulled every string I have. The paperwork that classified her as government property has been rescinded. She's yours now, legally and fully. No one can take her or her puppies away." Travis exhaled a long, shaky breath. Relief washed over him, but it was mixed with deep, aching sadness for everything Bella had endured. Matthew stepped closer, his eyes softening as he knelt to Bella's level. "I'm sorry, girl," he whispered. "We failed you, but you're home now." Bella leaned forward, pressing her muzzle gently against Matthew's hand. For the first time since her arrival, she seemed to find peace. As the storm subsided outside, a sense of calm settled over the farmhouse. The long fight was over. Bella and her puppies were finally safe, truly and irrevocably safe. But as the first rays of sunlight broke through the storm clouds, Travis knew deep down that this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. For the first time in what felt like months, the farmhouse breathed easy. The storm had passed, both the one outside and the one that had threatened to tear Bella's new life apart. The scent of fresh rain hung in the air, mingling with the warm, comforting aroma of the crackling fire. The puppies lay peacefully against their mother, their tiny chests rising and falling in rhythm with Bella's now steady breathing. Travis sat quietly by the window, a steaming cup of coffee in his hand. His eyes moved between the peaceful scene by the hearth and the letter in his lap. A formal document stamped and signed confirming Bella's legal adoption and permanent placement in his care. It was official. She was his, and she was finally free. He watched as Bella gently nudged her pups, encouraging them to nurse. There was a tenderness in her actions that brought a lump to his throat. Despite all she'd endured, combat zones, loss, betrayal, abandonment, she had found the strength to love again, to nurture, to heal. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky with soft strokes of pink and orange. Outside, the soaked earth glistened under light, and the old oak tree stood proudly against the horizon. Travis took a deep breath and made a decision. It was time to give Bella and her pups a sure, true home, one that extended beyond the walls of the farmhouse. Later that morning, Travis loaded the puppies into a lined basket and helped Bella into his truck. She was hesitant at first, her paws pausing at the edge of the door. But with a reassuring pat and soft words, she climbed in beside him. Their destination wasn't the vet's office or shelter. Travis had something else in mind. They arrived at the wide-open fields that once served as the town's retired K-9 training grounds. It was a place of honor, a sanctuary for service dogs who had given their all and deserved a peaceful life afterward. The old gates creaked open as Travis guided the truck inside. Bella lifted her head, her ears twitching as familiar scents filled the air. Scents of other dogs, of freedom, of home. Travis parked near the main building where a few caretakers were already outside tending to the grounds. Melanie was there too, standing with a smile that spoke volumes. She had arranged everything. "This is where you belong now, girl," Travis whispered as he opened his door and helped Bella out. She took cautious steps at first, her gaze scanning the vast green fields, the open sky, and the distant figures of other dogs roaming freely. Then, something beautiful happened. Bella lifted her head and let out a soft, confident bark. Her tail wagged fully, freely for the first time since Travis had met her. She looked back at him briefly as if to say thank you, then trotted toward the fields with newfound strength. The puppies, safely nestled in the basket, would stay at the farmhouse with Travis until they were old enough to explore this freedom themselves. But today was Bella's day. Travis stood by the fence, his hands resting on the worn wooden posts, his heart full. He watched as Bella ran across the field, the morning sun catching the gleam of her healthy coat. She wasn't a broken dog anymore. She wasn't a discarded tool of war. She was free. Melanie walked up beside him, her eyes misty. "You gave her a second chance, Travis," she said quietly. He shook his head. "No." She found her own way back. "I just opened the door." As the sun climbed higher, bathing the fields in golden light, Bella turned once more to look back at Travis. In that brief glance, everything was said: gratitude, trust, freedom. And with that, she sprinted toward the horizon, her silhouette strong and proud against the rising sun. Weeks had passed since Bella found her freedom on the wide open fields of the K9 sanctuary. Life had settled into a beautiful, peaceful rhythm. But for Travis, something deeper had taken root, an understanding that true healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about rising above it, stronger and more compassionate than before. At the farmhouse, the puppies had grown into lively little bundles of energy. Each had inherited their mother's intelligence and quiet strength, but with their own unique personalities. There was Scout, the most adventurous of the bunch, already trying to climb over the low pen rails. Daisy, the smallest but fiercest, barking at her siblings as if she were in charge. And then there was Ranger, the one that always sat quietly, observing, his sharp eyes following every move Travis made. It was Ranger who reminded Travis the most of Bella. Thoughtful, watchful, loyal. One crisp morning, as golden autumn leaves scattered across the fields, Travis packed up the truck again. This time, it wasn't for a visit to the sanctuary. It was for a new beginning. The puppies were ready to find their forever homes. And Travis had carefully selected each one for families who truly understood what it meant to love and protect. But there was one decision he hadn't made yet: what to do about Ranger. He sat on the front porch steps with a cup of coffee, watching the little pup sit by his boots, looking out the horizon, the same way Bella used to do. "You thinking what I'm thinking, boy?" Travis asked softly, reaching down to scratch behind Rare's ear. The little pup leaned into his touch, his eyes closing with complete trust. It hit Travis in that moment. Some bonds aren't meant to be broken. Some are meant to carry on a legacy. With a soft chuckle, he scooped Ranger up into his arms and stood. "Looks like you're staying, kid. This place needs a guardian after all." Later that day, Travis visited the sanctuary to see Bella. When he arrived, she was lying under the old oak tree at the edge of the fields. Her head high, her gaze calm and content. She looked stronger than ever, proud, dignified and free. As Travis approached, Ranger squirmed excitedly in his arms, letting out a tiny bark. Bella's ears perked, and she stood gracefully, walking toward them with the poise of a queen. She stopped in front of her son, their noses meeting gently. For a long, quiet moment, she inspected him as if giving her approval. And then, with a low, affectionate growl, she nuzzled him close. Travis crouched beside them, his hand resting on Bella's neck. "You did good. Girl," he whispered. "He's got your spirit." Bella sat down beside him, her eyes turning toward the horizon once more, that same peaceful knowing look that had come to define her. As the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of amber and crimson, Travis stayed there with Bella and Ranger by his side. He thought about the journey that had brought them all here, about the cruelty and hardship Bella had survived, the resilience she had shown, and the lives she had brought into the world against all odds. Her story wasn't one of tragedy. It was one of triumph. And as he sat there in the fading light, Travis realized something profound. Sometimes the most broken hearts have the greatest capacity for love, and sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. As the last light of day faded, Travis stood and took one final look across the fields. Then he turned to Ranger, who sat patiently at his feet, and smiled. "Let's go home, boy." And with that, a new chapter began, one of hope, healing, and the unbreakable bond between a May and his dogs. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Together we can keep spreading messages of hope, courage, and unconditional love.